of course, tactic that we want to discuss with Mohammed, which is litigation, taking to the courts. Let's focus on the Rohingya case, which reached the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, which seems like a breakthrough at a time when so many accountability mechanisms are being weakened. And actually, for the record, there are two separate cases against Myanmar. One at the ICJ, seeking to hold the state responsible for violating the Genocide Convention, and another one at the ICC, the International Criminal Court, seeking to prosecute individual military leaders for specific crimes against humanity. So here's my question, Mohammed. From your perspective, does this suggest that international justice can still constrain power in meaningful ways, or does it demonstrate how dependent legal accountability is on political will?
Thank you for having me here. My name is Muhammad Nakims. So, when I watched the opening, the ICJ hearing this January, it was the first time I felt that the suffering of Rohingya was being heard in a space where the truth must matter. For decades, our pain was denied or treated as an internal issue. Suddenly, it was before the world judges could, with the evidence of burning village, mass killing, systematic persecutions that were presented. For the survivor, it is not only a legal milestone, but it is a form of recognition that what happened to us was not an accident. It was a history and a crimes that deserve a response. The ICJ cannot stop every atrocity, but it can draw a clear line. When judges say genocide acts are being examined, that Myanmar has obligation under the Genocide Convention, it sends a message to the military and to the political leader and to other government that the world is watching to us. We saw this already in the provisional measure that the court ordered earlier in 2020, which require Myanmar to prevent the genocidal acts and preserve the evidence. Even though the implementation was very weak, through this measure, civil society gives and is a tool to demand changes, to document everything that have been happening to the Rohingya people. If I say what will be the political will, at the same time, this case shows the limit of the international law when the powerful states decide to protect each other. ICJ decisions do not enforce themselves. They rely on the government, on the bodies like UN Security Council, on the regional organization to follow through. This is where we see the lack of political will. For example, despite the court order, Rohingya people in Myanmar are still suffering from different kind of violation, re-expression, deprivation, and there is no meaningful move to restore our citizenship or dismantle the discrimination law. So we see clearly that law can expose the truth, but it cannot be by itself force the political changes.
Well, thank you so much, Mohammed. You're taking us straight into the next part of the conversation that we want to have, because definitely, I mean, what you're saying is something we are stressing a lot in the report, is that all these trends that we are looking at, they are not, abstract. They are actually affecting those with the least access to rights the hardest. So they have lived consequences for people, for real people. So let's start again. Like again, I have a question for you. Let's continue this conversation, and we have well, particularly in our research about migration and asylum seekers and so on, we have read and written a lot about statelessness and how it's often discussed in legal terms, but it has very real practical consequences for people. So we would like to know, from your perspective, what does it mean for everyday life, education, work, mobility, political voice? How does living without citizenship shape a community's ability to organize and mobilize?
Yeah. Like statelessness sounds like a technical word, but for us, it's a everyday part of my life since I was born because it's controlled by someone else's permission. Without recognized citizenship, you cannot freely travel, you cannot vote, You cannot own a land. Your existence depends on the document that authorized to cancel at any times. Let me share an example. In the IDP camps in Myanmar, where more than 100,000 people has been kept, this show of restriction on the movement because they have been put curfew, checkpoint, constraint fear of being accused of illegal movement just for visiting to another family to another township. It means young people growing up who have never been seen a world where they can walk without being stopped. This is something like every day we have been put of life. Let me say one of my story. When I was completed my matriculation examination, I wasn't able to go to the university just for being who we are. And then I decided to help to my community. I applied to the government job and other things. And every time they said you are not eligible for this job because of being who we are. It's this the stillness is something that affects to everyone, especially to the Rohingya community since we are one.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences. We'll